Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Unsheath. This rendition is featuring a good friend. I am not allowed to share her legal name, so we have to go with Dex. That is her alias. I believe she is a part of the CIA. I'm not sure. Momentarily before we started this, and I just destroyed that sentence. I was challenged to lick my salt lamp to verify that it was actually salt. So that is my introduction for Dex, short for Dexter. Go ahead, Dex, introduce yourself. You're up.
I think everybody should know whether they're being scammed or not. And with a salt lamp, it's really easy to tell. So I can speak from personal experience. I've licked a salt lamp at least once. It was salt. So my name is Dexter. My first name is not secret. It's Catherine, which is just weird. Most of the people who get to know me think it's also weird. There's a very small handful of people that call me Catherine. And a couple of those people, I've never bothered to tell them to call me by what I want to be called because it's just not important. And the other part are the people that know me really, really well. So
with that being said, Catherine's Instagram post, if you'd like to follow her, is squat.rack.poet. Kidding, Dex.
It's like Catherine is like, I don't know, like a name from Pride and Prejudice, and I'm the most un-Pride and Prejudice. Although I really like that story, by the way, but I'm like the most un-Pride and Prejudice person I've probably ever met. So Dex has always just felt more appropriate. I always went by my last name through high school and then through the military, obviously, and then it was just familiar. And it just felt like me.
Well, thank you, Dex, for coming on tonight. Let's go ahead and start this novella with a little backstory prior to your time in the CIA.
Oh,
before you became undercover, yes. If you could bring people up to speed to who the alias Dex is.
So I mean, I guess I could start from the beginning. I grew up in Alabama. That's where I was born. Neither of my parents are from Alabama, so I don't have any family left there anymore. Grew up super Southern, super religious. My parents are very strict Mormon parents. So that's kind of how I grew up, with a lot of ideals that were passed down to me through my parents. It took me a long time to kind of deconstruct, and I don't harbor like resentment for, especially not for Christianity, and I don't harbor resentment for the Mormon or LDS church. But it's not really something that I'm super involved with anymore as an adult. But after Alabama, I graduated high school there. And I actually graduated early, so I didn't get to kind of finish out my senior year with anybody. I just left. And then my parents, both of them, moved back to Wyoming, where they still live. And so I spent a little time there before I went off to college the first time. And when I was in high school, I originally wanted to go to art school, like as college, but turns out art school is like stupid expensive. So didn't happen. And I instead went to BYU, Idaho, which, I mean, like, it got me where I needed to be, but
okay.
0 out of 10 would never recommend anyone going to a religious college, especially not BYU, Idaho. Like, go to brand name BYU instead. Go to Provo. If you're going to go to BYU, go to BYU Provo. It's actually a pretty decent school. BYU, Idaho, on the other hand, is like Provo's dirty cousin. And it's just stricter and more, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like more backwoods, more cultish. That's what it felt like. Okay. So it's not like the religion turns you into a cult. It's this bubble where 95% of the population are all practicing the same religion, and they're all young adults out there for the first time. So they're all kind of making up their own rules, and the goal is to be like more Mormon than the other people, which is really difficult to be. But these kids were winning every day at trying to be more Mormon than the person to the left or right. And it just left a really bad taste in my mouth for the kind of culture and the kind of people who try to compete that way. So it's not very accepting, very judgmental place. And then I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps. I had always wanted to go in, and I guess that's what I was getting at when I was in high school. I'd worked on this art project as a senior, and it really kind of got me involved with like that military group, which had always kind of fascinated me because I have some extended relatives that are in the military. And I'd always been curious about it. I did ROTC when I was in high school, but I didn't really think of myself as joining the military until I was a senior. And I read, I'm not even like, I used to be embarrassed to talk about it, but I'm not. I went full motard. I'm okay with it. I'm actually starting my reenlistment paperwork, which is not a joke, it's true. So I read General Kelly's speech that he gave on Memorial Day back in, it was either 2008 or 2009. I think it was 2008 because it was 2009 when I read it. And it was the speech about the two young sentries that gave their lives. They stopped the VBID before it got onto the base. And that speech hit me. It hit me in a really emotional way. And, you know, at 17 years old, knowing nothing about the military, of course, it's like very cheesy, very like, oh, I love America, I want to be a patriot. And then when I got in, it was really cool not to care. And I kind of forgot about that for a little while, but that's where it started. That's where the seed was planted. And then I went off to BYU and I hated it. And I ran out of money and I got fired from my job. And okay, so I was working fast food and I still got fired from that. I don't know how. Somebody said I was rude. I don't know what it was, but I got fired. So then I was out of a job in a college town where there are no jobs available. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I wanted to join the Marine Corps. I knew I wanted to join, but I've been thinking about doing it as an officer because I was in college. I wanted to finish my degree. My parents wanted me to serve a religious mission for our church. And I was like, you know what? I don't have any money. I'm not going to find a job here. I may as well do what I need that I know I want to do. So that's what I did. And I enlisted about a semester through my sophomore year. I dropped out of college, went and enlisted, and started out as an MP. Went to Iwakuni, Japan for my first duty station, which was awesome. I came back to the States, California, where I spent the next 2.5 years on Camp Pendleton. And then shortly after getting to Camp Pendleton, I got married. And then whole family, I have 2 small kids. We're still talking in the background up there. And I had my son right when I separated from the Marine Corps. And that was a really interesting transition period for my life. Really difficult time. And it took many years after. It was kind of like those first 5 years that I spent in the Marine Corps were like growing up on steroids. Yeah. Especially after coming from like a super conservative religious household and then hit the Marine Corps. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on here? And so the growing up that I did in those 5 years was extremely disproportionate to the previous 5 years. And then almost the next few years. And I think I finally hit an appropriate pace of growing up over the last couple of years. But it was really difficult. It was difficult to figure out what I wanted to do, what I felt like I could do. Yeah, after the service. Because, I mean, not only did I transition from being a Marine to being a civilian, but I transitioned from not having a child to being a mother. And then I transitioned from living in California to living in Texas. I'm from neither place. So both were not home to me. Both did not feel familiar. I didn't want necessarily to live in either place. And so when I left the Marine Corps, it was 3 transitions all in one. And I didn't process then, I didn't process the next couple of years, how difficult that really was for me and how jarring it really was, because I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I kind of felt really lost for a long time. I felt lost until after I had my daughter, which my kids are almost 2 years apart. So
Jumping in really quick.
yeah,
So right off the bat, I wanted to bring you on for who you are as a person, the creative side to your page and things like that. And also for the fact that you are a female and you are a female veteran. And I know, and unless if you know of others, please advise that there's not to my knowledge, I haven't seen a lot of female veterans that use their voice in the way that you do. And that's a big reason why I wanted to bring you on, because I know that sometimes relating to guys is harder when it comes to like being a mother, obviously.
yeah. I think a lot of female veterans don't become bro vets, and I know I don't look like one, but deep down inside, I'm a bro vet. I drink veteran company coffee. It's not
Yeah.
Black Rifle because I'm also a little indie. So I drink Red Clover, excuse me. But I was kind of disenfranchised for a little while. It took me a bit to lean in. And once I did, I found the community that I've been missing. I found the little voice that had been nagging at me that I not necessarily was ignoring, but life had been too noisy for me to hear.
Okay.
The same voice that was like, you need to go back in, was that same voice that told me when I was 17, this is what you need to do. This is what you are meant to do. Like, and I don't know how other people figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And I know that it just doesn't happen for everybody. Like, not everyone hears that. Not everyone feels that kind of passion or drive to do certain things, which is fine. Like, it doesn't mean what you're doing is purposeless. But I think for me, it really has been like this is what you're built for. This is what you need to do. You're meant for this as a career. This is what your life and your energy needs to go towards. And so I think the last year that I was living in Texas, and it was after I had my daughter. I had really bad postpartum. My recovery was really tough, but when she was about 4 months old, I started going back to the gym, which was hard. It was super hard. And then I think I kind of figured out, like, I wanted to get back into the military in some capacity. And I decided what I was going to do, and then I was going to go back into the Marine Corps. And so I've kind of I've tried to structure a lot about my personal life around that over the last couple of years. And I'm finally there. I'm finally there. I had some bad information from a recruiter who didn't know a lot, who told me that I couldn't, making weight has been probably my biggest struggle right now. And he told me that I couldn't start any of my paperwork until I like made weight. I was like, all right, well, I guess it's going to be a while. But then I just spoke to the recruiter and he was like, that's wrong, especially for the reserves. So if you're trying to re-enlist from the Marine Corps back into the Marine Corps and you want to go reserves, you don't have to wait. You can start your paperwork. So for any of those, that 1% of listeners that want to do that, because the Army loves the Marine Corps vets.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
None of them want to go back into the Marine Corps. I don't know. I've never met anyone that went from the Marine Corps, took a break, came back. So
I've met one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long was the break?
He was out for I think like 2, 3 years. I think you played cop for a little while, and then
I
just
thought
went
about
back
doing,
to what's up,
I thought about doing that.
being a cop.
Yeah.
Uh,
Everybody, even the recruiter was like, so you want to go back as an MP, right? And I was like, nah, man. If I wanted to play cop, like I would be a cop. Like, why
Yeah.
would I go back as an MP when I could just be a real cop? Like, it would
right.
not be. I have a criminal justice associates on top of 5 years of work experience. Like, it's not difficult to get hired. Like, and it was pretty good as a cop. I mean, I have a break in employment, but
Do you want to dive into that transitionary period that you caress?
yeah, I can.
Some of those topics that might relate to a listener, a viewer.
Of the female demographic. Do you need my lap? Come on. Sorry, my dog.
No, it's fine.
He is a post-traumatic stress dog. He's not a service dog. He's the dog who needs service dog.
Oh, he
I
needs
don't
an
know what he has. Yeah, I don't know what this
um,
dog has anxiety over, but he's got a lot. His
emotional
name's Mark.
support owner.
Yeah, that's what he needs.
Service decks. There you go.
I wear the
Yeah.
vest to go out. Actually, I don't take him out because he's an asshole. but
Yeah, just
yeah,
I mean,
that's
sharing things that can, of course, the intention behind this is to help others
yeah.
through humor, education, story.
Oh, well, I can finally share the story you told me to wait to share.
Yes, exactly.
So when I was in my last year of my contract, so when I came in, MPs in the Marine Corps served on 5-year contracts instead of 4. And I was, after my first year in, I was pretty hyper aware of how people saw me as a female, and the things that I could not get away with as a woman in the Marine Corps. Because it's basically like you're being treated like you're always doing one thing wrong. And that one thing wrong is being a woman. So I can't do 2 things wrong. I can only do this one thing wrong. So when I did 2 things wrong, it was really bad. And if you're a woman and you're pregnant, you're doing 2 things wrong.
Okay.
So we got married about 6 months after I got to California. So it was about halfway through my contract at the time. And my unit at the time, I was in the LE battalion, which for the Marine Corps is it's like a field unit. They don't do any kind of garrison police work. It's all gearing up for how MPs attach to combat units on deployment, or sending the guys on personal security details for these generals that go out on deployments as well. So that unit is really tactical, really really hands-on field environment type stuff. So the year that I was there, my company specifically was on their workup. So it was basically like we never deployed together. So we basically took a whole year where the company refined, because the following year our company would be on the MEU rotation. So anytime they would have a MEU, they'd be pulling people from our company exclusively. So we spent that year that I was there just training. So every single month I went to the field that year, whether it was company exercises or not. But I knew that year, it was also the year that I got married, like that was a no-go for having a baby, for getting pregnant, all that stuff. But I also knew time was running out on my contract. So they didn't want to send me on any MEUs, because the workup plus the deployment would be too long, and I would have to extend my contract. And they didn't want to send anyone who was over a specific rank and planned on getting out. So it was during the kind of that the drawdown phase, when I was in. So the deployments were coming less and less. They wanted to send the newer guys on these MEUs so that the people with experience would have a few more years left to teach the newer guys. So I wanted to get out. I only had a couple years left. they were like, we don't want to send you because you'll come home and you'll have like 3 months on contract. It's useless to us. So
Yeah.
by the end of my year in the field unit, they planned on sending me over to PMO there was a whole group of us who were going to go augment the PMO unit. And it was around that time that I was like, okay, I need to get pregnant within like the next 6 months or so if I want to have a baby while I still have insurance.
Yeah.
Because my husband was out. So it was me that had the TRICARE. And I kind of just let it be. And I definitely felt like unusual. It felt unusual getting married, telling people, hey, I'm getting married. I had my lieutenant call me in when I applied for leave for my marriage and for my honeymoon. He was like, are you actually like getting a real marriage? I was like, yeah. I showed up to my unit engaged. I was like, dude, like really? Like I've been engaged for 6 months. And I was like, I've told you people, like I'm actually getting married. And he's like, yeah, but you're not going to the courthouse. And I was like, no. He's like, you got people invited, they're coming. I was like, I have a wedding dress, I have a venue, I have guests.
Got the whole thing.
This is marriage, this is a wedding.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I have a plan for afterwards. There's like a honeymoon involved. And so I got flack for that, which was weird. And then I knew that, if I got pregnant really soon, like there was going to be 2 things wrong.
Yeah.
And so I waited for a while until I was like, okay, we're playing with time here. We're playing with insurance, we're playing with money. It might be time to try, have a baby. And I, of course, you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't think about how it was going to affect me transitioning. I didn't think about it. I had kind of been toying around with the idea of maybe trying to re-enlist because it took me a while to get pregnant. And so it was right towards the end of that time where I was like, okay, now I have to get pregnant now or not, and just not be pregnant for a while. And it was kind of in that moment where I was like on the fence. I was like, well, if it doesn't happen, then maybe I'll consider re-enlisting. And because I really did not know, and I hadn't had to face what I was going to do when I got out. And then I did get pregnant. And I'd been working in PMO for about 7 months at that point. And I had a great time. It was a fantastic unit. SES Battalion on Pendleton in 2016 was the best unit I have ever experienced in my entire career. And I jumped around to a few of them within the MP community. They were fantastic from the CO down. And that's where it started. The CO of the battalion, his sergeant major, were incredible people. They cared. They were strict. They upheld the standards themselves. They passed it down. And then on the PMO side, so there's the battalion headquarters and then the actual COP side of the house. And that was ran by a lieutenant colonel, and he's the provost marshal. And he was a good guy. He was really strict. He was a lot less personal, but I knew he was a good guy. And it started with them. So we had fantastic platoon leadership, the staff NCOs. Like, I think it was just that they were held to a standard. They were treated like adults. They didn't have to deal with bullshit from higher. So they were able to kind of run things the way that the staff NCO should be allowed to run things. So they all kind of did a great job. And when I told my staff sergeant that I was pregnant, like, I didn't feel like I was doing the wrong thing. They were like genuinely happy for me. At the time, I was the only female left in my platoon. And the last female that was in my platoon had also gotten pregnant, which was pretty funny. So everyone was kind of wondering what was in the water over at PMO. And, if they didn't want their females to get pregnant, they should just make the environment way more stressful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the solution right there. But they were going to send me back to the law enforcement battalion, and I didn't want to go back because the unit environment over there wasn't as great. And it just so happened that they needed somebody in the S3 shop in the training section on the battalion side. And they were like, saves us from having to ask another unit to send their trash marine over here. And we know you're good. We talked to your staff and CO, so you can come join us. So they extended my orders to the SCS battalion and allowed me to stay. And I became the training NCO. And it was fantastic. I got to do some things. I had the opportunity to do a lot of personal, professional development in a very small shop. It was me, it was another sergeant, it was a master sergeant, and then we had a civilian who oversaw everything. And so I really only answered to this master sergeant. And my last few months of being pregnant, I had kind of mentioned, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'll have enough time to use my terminal leave, because maternity leave at the time was 6 weeks.
Okay.
And my due date and my EAS date were less than 6 weeks apart.
Okay.
So all my transition time was going to happen on maternity leave, which is free leave. So I didn't know what to do with my terminal. And without asking if I could do it, my master sergeant was just like, why don't you just take 3-day weekends for a couple of months? I was like, for a couple of months, sir? And he was like, yeah, I'll check you out. I'll check you back in. You don't have to come in. I don't care. He's like, have 4-day weeks for months. And I was like, say less. So I did it. And he would remind me, that's how good he was. He would remind me. He would be like, put these in for a few weeks in a row and then do the next like few weeks. So I used up my terminal leave. Like I had a couple of months saved up and I used it up like on weekends. And I had a really fantastic sergeant major. The battalion sergeant major, because I was in the battalion building, was always chit-chatting with people. And I know this is like not everybody's experience. It sounds like a fairy tale, honestly. When I tell people, I feel like I'm bragging. I feel like I roll up to a car show and everyone has like these shit Hondas, and I'm in there driving like like a Maserati, like a Porsche. And I'm like, look at me, guys. I had this great experience, you know, especially as a pregnant female. It's like, because you know, I know so many pregnant females that were like forced to PT, were, you know, not allowed to go to appointments, like all kinds of really messed up things that are in the order you're not allowed to do to these people, you know, that face like backhanded retribution in their units just because they got pregnant. And I feel like I kind of got this beautiful golden opportunity, and for the first time in my Marine Corps career, I made the most out of it. I went to college. I did 2 semesters out of pocket, so I wouldn't have to touch my GI Bill.
During your 4-day work weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my master sergeant was pretty much like, if you get all of your work done, I don't care. He allowed me and my sergeant to come in. We swapped dates. So he would approve our schedule for classes. I did in-person classes and online classes. And because he was like, you will answer to me and no one else. He's like, I'm not going to run it up the chain. It's my shop. I'll let you do shit as long as everything gets done that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And me and her were actually wonderful friends. We would go eat lunch together every single day. Just how good friends we were. But we would swap days. If she came in late because she had a morning class, I would come in early to cover someone being in the office. And then they would let me leave early to go to like an early afternoon class, and she would stay later to cover that time. So he would let us do that, which is also super unusual because we weren't using TA. Neither of us had enough time left on contract to even qualify for TA. So, I mean, you either use your GI Bill or you paid out of pocket. And the community college in Southern California, it's called Palomar, super cheap for veterans. So if any of the listeners are in Southern California, San Diego, Coronado, San Marcos area, Pendleton, or Miramar, Palomar Community College is $41 a credit hour. I paid like $1,700 a semester. which in Southern California is pocket change, pretty much.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
you get paid. So saved me 2 semesters in my JABO while I was there. And I laid the groundwork for most of my associates. And then I had my baby, and it was really, really weird because I feel like I didn't get the same kind of send off that I saw a lot of people get in the Marine Corps, because it was kind of slow. I had my baby, I kind of checked out of all my units, and I got a fantastic farewell at the SAS battalion because we were all pretty tight. But then I kind of hung around in Southern California for the next 6 weeks. It was like the next 2 months, really, because I EAS and then we moved. And I promoted to sergeant while I was on maternity leave. It was really weird promote. I was a sergeant for 5 whole days. And they asked me to come back, just come into the office so they could actually pin me.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously I didn't have like daycare or anything. I'm just there with my baby and my like brand new baby. So I have my promotion picture from, picking up sergeant. I'm like in civilian clothes and I'm holding this baby because I couldn't put him down.
Yeah.
And I have this lieutenant that I'd never met in my life just read my promotion warrant. I'm just standing there. I'm like, all right, this is really weird. But they were pretty good about it at the LE battalion, because that's what I had to check out with eventually. And then I had nothing. So it was super jarring to go from this unit that I didn't really want to leave to nothing. These people that actually liked me and actually cared about me and gave a shit and made my transition, the actual getting out process, really pretty easy, because most people get so much shit for getting out. By the way, even SIF gave me shit. I went in there 9 million months pregnant to check out and return all my gear, and I definitely dropped that card. I told the guy inspecting my gear, was like, yeah, I could go into labor at any moment. I'm literally already past my due date. And he was like, yeah, this pack is dirty.
Yeah, those guys have no soul.
And I was like,
deliver your baby right here.
He was like, I'll make you clean your pack again. So some things are always true, and maybe there's some comfort in that, but
so you get out with a family. What's the
Yep.
game plan? What's the game plan?
I didn't know. I thought I needed to be, this stay-at-home mom. And I mean, there was a lot of personal religious pressure from my mom, and kind of my family, that it took me a really long time to let go of. That not a lot of people I know deal with, especially not women in the military. I was in this, my mom still thinks the military is a phase, kind of like my emo phase, which it wasn't really a phase, just kind of turned into the adult goth girl phase. So I went from Wednesday Addams to Morticia Addams, and I went from Mormon to not being Mormon, and my mom was not happy about either of those things. And I went from the Marine Corps back to the Marine Corps. So I think it never really clicked for me, especially at that period of my life. And I guess to the listener that might be going through it, don't be too hard on yourself if it's not clicking for you and you don't know why. That you might just need to be patient. You might just need to wait and have those few difficult years before it really clicks for you. Because I don't think I would have arrived at the same conclusions if I had re-enlisted. I wouldn't have lat moved. I would have stayed in the MP field. I would have tried to go CID. I would have tried to go either to NCIS, to something within that field. And I wouldn't say that I wouldn't have been fulfilled or I wouldn't have enjoyed it, but I'm trying to get into the 0311 contract right now, which as a reservist, I actually do have the freedom to pick. And it was what I wanted when I was a 17-year-old in high school. It was what General Kelly was talking about. He wasn't talking about MPs. He was talking about infantry Marines. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what I was passionate about. And when I asked my recruiter for that position, he gave me some really bad news because this was 2012.
Okay.
Excuse me, it was 2011 because
Okay.
I didn't go to boot camp until 2012. But by 2016, I was pregnant. By 2016, when they said women are allowed in, I was pregnant. I was a little disenfranchised. I didn't have any, my husband wanted to move to Texas already. He was chomping at the bit to go. He'd been out for a couple of years. He wanted to move on, go get his bachelor's. And I didn't really have a plan. So I didn't have an argument to say no. So we went. And he didn't know what he didn't know back then. He didn't know that I was trying to fit myself into this box. I didn't know that that's what I was trying to do. But I felt like I had to figure out a purpose within the parameters that I had. I'd figure out a purpose around being a stay-at-home mother because I felt like that was what I was supposed to do because there were a lot of people in my life that were telling me that. And my husband wasn't pressuring me to be a stay-at-home mom, but it was kind of the way that the cards fell.
Mhm.
You know, you're going to school full time. There's no time. I mean, and his specific degree had classes with after school labs. There was no time for him to actually work like a real job. There wasn't time for him to be home so that I could go work and somebody could watch the kids. So it was kind of this, I don't know, just difficult situation, which honestly, a lot of young students and a lot of young families find themselves in. And I felt like I just had to be satisfied and had to find purpose while I was being this stay-at-home mom, which is what I thought I was supposed to do and what I thought was going to feel natural. And I was extremely surprised when I didn't feel natural. And it took me a long time to figure out, and not just figure out, but be okay with the fact that this doesn't feel natural, does not feel right. And it does not mean I don't love my children. Just because being a stay-at-home mom isn't meant what I need to do, doesn't mean I'm a bad mom. It doesn't mean I love my children any less than a mom who spends 24/7 around her kids and homeschools. So it was really difficult to come to terms with. I don't speak to my mother anymore because she does believe that if I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, it means I love my children less.
Mhm.
But honestly, we're okay. I'm okay. I'm okay about it. And I think the transition, I didn't give myself time and I didn't ask for the time because I felt very swept up in what was going on. And if I were to give somebody advice, it would just be to be patient with yourself. There's been a significant number of events through the last 4 years that I've been out of the Marine Corps. And the recurring theme is that I have to be patient with some things. And I have to be patient with my mind and my, I don't know, I guess purpose. The things that I'm going through, my processing time, I have to be patient with that processing time. And that I can't rush it. I know what I want to be. I know how I want to feel. I don't know how I'm going to get there. And I have to be patient with the things that are going to get me to my end state, which is feeling fulfilled. The end state wasn't, oh, I need to be an infantry Marine. The end state was feeling fulfilled. Just so happened that that's how I'm going to feel fulfilled. And I had to be patient with what was going to get me there. And I had to allow the journey to happen. I had to be on it. I had to be engaged in it. And then it did. And I mean, there's, you know, it's a really simplified version. There's a shit ton of life events that happened over the last 4 years, well, very intense, to get me to that place. But I think it really wasn't until after I had my second child that I came to that realization about not, maybe being a stay-at-home mom isn't for me. And that led to a lot of conflict because there were things that my husband didn't understand about himself and how he viewed family life. And there was a lot of things I didn't understand about myself and how I viewed family life, and especially because of that religious upbringing, that religious influence in my life, that I had to square those two things. Um, Not wanting to do this thing that I've been pressured to do my entire life. Finally figuring out that, hey, this Marine Corps thing is not just a phase. This is kind of a life's purpose type deal. This is my passion. This is what I want as a career. I am not going to enjoy anything else quite like I'm going to enjoy that. And it was just hard. It was hard to come to those realizations. It was hard to have the conversations that led to those. It was hard to think about it. And it was hard to change the trajectory of my life to get there.
Okay. Growth is a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Good and bad, obviously.
Yeah.
So besides the extracurricular activities of licking salt lamps that are on display at stores,
That's why I
who
don't
is
have a
that?
salt lamp in my own house. I'd be too tempted.
You just lick other people's.
Yes.
You just quality assurance.
If your salt lamp is looking a little smaller than it was before I came over, you'll know.
DM Doug. So who are you today? What's going on in your life? Or what are you doing for work, school, Marine Corps, hobbies? Who is Dex today? Mom. Who are you
Uh,
today? To come to get out with no plan to where you are today. What are you?
well, right now I went back to school, so I got my criminal justice associates in the end of 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It took me 9 years.
Yeah.
It took me 8 years to get my associates, and then I failed a core class because I forgot to take the final. Literally, just forgot it. And so rather than, because that year, how they also changed like degree requirements and stuff for certain majors. So that year they happened to do that. So rather than just retake that English class, which is also hilarious, I'm great at writing. I'm a fantastic essay writer. I am a fantastic creative writer. So the idea that I failed an English class was pretty laughable to me. But rather than just retake that one class, I was using the GI-Bill, those requirements, whatever. I decided to just completely change majors so that I could stay with full-time credits. And I figured criminal justice would be useful in a way that a general associate's wouldn't be, which is also true. So I added on 2 more semesters. Instead of just taking on a couple more classes, I did, it was 3 because I took a summer semester as well. And I packed a criminal justice degree into 1 year, finished it. I did it all online. And I said I was done with school. I didn't want to do anything with school anymore. I was still kind of on the fence with what I wanted to do military career wise. My husband was in Kuwait the entire year. I was living in my parents' basement. This is some of those life events that were really difficult to get through that pushed that growth.
Yeah.
But I think it's super important to be like, this is where I am. This is how I went from being like very transitionary to feeling much more secure with my purpose and much more secure with like my hobbies. So the year of 2020 was this year where I pruned the tree. And I did a podcast recently. So this is my shameless plug to Veterans Repertory Theater. You can find them on Instagram. It's Vet Rep. And they are a veterans arts organization. It's a nonprofit. It's run out of Cornwall, New York, small little New York town up by West Point. And they had me on their podcast last month. And I talked a lot to Chris about pruning the tree and how I had all of these branches going out. And I was in this period where I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like throwing everything out. I was letting all the branches grow. And if you know anything about plant care, which I do, as you can see from all the plant books on my shelf you were giving me shit about earlier, landscape design, 21st century herbal, Smithsonian natural history, 2 books on cacti and succulents, by the way. Okay, anyways, plant care. When you prune a branch on a tree or any kind of plant, including succulents and cactus, when you prune the little branches, it allows the plant to give more energy to the branches you want to grow. And if you let plants get too leggy, like I have a mint plant that's dying right now because that's what happened to it. I didn't clear off enough of the little branches. And so there's just too many little branches. The plant's dying now because there's too many little things. And it couldn't devote enough energy to the big parts of the plant. So when you start pruning off these little branches, you can devote more energy to what you need to grow.
Yep.
And that's what I did in 2020. And 2021 was also really difficult because there was a lot of roadblocks. There was more transitions. I moved again across the country and decided to go back to school because I kind of toyed around with the idea of learning language. And I wanted to learn Russian, not for any particular cool reason other than the fact that Russian is like a top tier language for the military, and they'll pay you, if you're fluent, they'll pay you up to $500 extra a month. So I was like, to do that.
I did start this and share that you are part of
The CIA.
CIA.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, no, it's totally for a cool guy reason. So I found out that University of Maryland, because I live out in Southern Maryland right now, and University of Maryland has a pretty good Russian program. They have pretty decent foreign language programs in general, but their Russian program is also good. And it feeds directly into a lot of the federal entities that are based out of here. So decided to do that. And so right now I am a full-time student. And this upcoming semester, one of my big, I wouldn't say it's a hobby anymore. It's kind of like a lifestyle. So I go to the gym, and I don't know how else to say it. I'm not a coach yet, but this upcoming semester, because I have to put a pause on my actual language core classes in favor of some of the other Russian classes and some other history classes. This upcoming semester, since it'll be a little easier, I'm going to be doing my NASM cert to be a certified coach.
That's
and
awesome.
Not even really to be employed with it. I mean, it would be fun. I would enjoy it. I would enjoy making some extra money. But honestly, I just wanted it in my back pocket. And truth be told, I think it will make me a much better Marine long term.
Mm-hmm.
If the commandant is listening to this, the number one change I would make to the Marine Corps, because all those other branches are fat anyway. So if we wanted to make the Marine Corps even better, would be to have an NCO be a certified fitness coach in, I don't know, ideally in the platoon level, in the squad level. If you had one NCO that was a certified fitness coach, do you have any idea how much better PT would be? Do you have any idea how many less injuries, how much money we would save long term? The DOD, just in general, in injury money, like in VA claims.
Sergeant Major Dexter.
Exactly. So, but I think, I mean, personally, like I feel like that would make me a much better Marine. It would make me not really looking good to headquarters, but just in general to my juniors, because that's what really matters. And you know, whatever 12 guys I have as a squad leader, they're going to have a fantastic PT session every time. We're going to do great things. We're all going to be squatting well over 300 pounds. We're going to be running and gunning. And that's why I want to have a coaching cert. Also so that I can make decent money while I try to compete.
Okay.
And so that's, I don't know, I guess my hobby, my interest, that's what I love doing. And I also write creatively. I've written creatively my whole life, but I've recently gotten into it on a much more professional level. So that's where the squat rack poet comes from, especially because doing the physical work helps me process a lot of the experiences that I've had. And I didn't realize that that was a thing that I needed to do until I got out. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I was pretty average up until those last couple of years. And something really started to change in me those last couple of years. The seed that needed to grow for me to get to the mental state that I am in now about the Marine Corps happened those last couple of years. It happened when I was with SES Battalion. It
Okay.
made me more motivated to do better and be a better Marine. And I wanted to make those changes. Unfortunately, when you're pregnant, it's kind of difficult to make those physical changes, like being better at PT. But I did do that professionally. I did a really good job my last year. I was well above average, just on paper as a Marine, my last year in the Marine Corps. But I wasn't doing PT anymore. So I was pregnant. And that was kind of the area that I hadn't ever measured up, that I had never gotten to where I wanted to be while I was in. And it didn't click for me until I started going to the gym after my daughter was born. That was a thing that I wanted to do in my life. I think at the time to just prove to myself that I could be strong, that I could be in better shape than I was in when I was in, that I could meet certain, I mean, I was meeting the standard when I was in, but I wasn't exceeding it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it's possible. I know that it's not even like the hardest thing. It's not Olympic level athlete stuff. Like you could put your best infantryman right now, like your most well-rounded, capable infantryman, and he's going to get smoked by any female Olympic athlete in comparable sports, obviously, because
He's not
curling? Yeah. Okay. Curling.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's an Olympic sport, but whatever.
So
I wanted to be in better shape. I wanted to meet those kinds of standards. I wasn't quite sure why until, other things in my life started clicking that, okay, I want to meet these standards because it's actually what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so fitness has become not just a thing that I have to do to get by, or a thing that people are yelling at me to do, but a thing that,
passion.
yeah, it's not just a thing that is augmenting the career. It is part of the career choice.
Yeah.
So
but you get physical benefits out of it. You get to process stuff up in your head.
Yeah, of course. And I love being strong. I love it. I get really down when I don't go to the gym. My body, my brain is addicted to the endorphins that I get from going to the gym. And I notice a significant mood change when I can't go for a few days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, having COVID over this break, this past semester, like killed me because I mean, family things, school things, my entire schedule was disrupted. So I was missing the gym a lot more than I normally do. And
so just out of curiosity, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot right now, especially with this recording. In times that you aren't able to work out, what can you do to essentially get by? Does poetry help?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're asking like mental health wise?
Yeah, or just emotional, spiritual, psychological. It doesn't have to be strictly like mental health, but
Yeah.
if you can't work out for some reason and you want to, if you have the urge to work out and for whatever reason if the gym's closed, for example, like, can you still get that enjoyment or get through that tough spot or have the same satisfaction doing poetry or spanking your kids? Sarcasm.
I definitely wouldn't call it the same satisfaction. You go in and you deadlift your max and you feel like an absolute beast, or you hit a bench press that you've never hit before, you set a new PR, and there's not a lot of other things that do the same thing for me as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. But I think if we're going to talk in terms of getting by, I mean, for me right now, like health, and especially like managing a continued weight loss and a continued like strength balance. If I can't go to the gym, I try to focus on nutrition and focus on like, well, okay, so I can't work out today for X reason. Or I mean, over the last couple of weeks, I was sick. So, I thought a little bit more about what am I putting into my body? How can I stay healthy? How can I maintain this balance here when certain things aren't possible? And I think in other things, like writing definitely helps. I'm not a big planner, but that fucks up my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things that I do is I try to make myself plan. I'm a big list writer. So I go through my daily planner and I write through all of my things and I collect my thoughts. And so when I am feeling discombobulated, it's actually an appropriate use of the word. When I'm feeling that way, I sit down and I make lists. And a lot of times I feel that way because I've missed time in the gym and I'm slow. I'm not, I haven't exerted myself that day. I haven't done things that are normally a part of my routine. So I'm already kind of feeling a little disconnected. So I will reassess. I'll go back to the planning stage, which I'm not very good at, but I make myself do because it helps me feel on track. It helps me feel like I still have my shit together. I plan decent meals. When I'm feeling really off track nutrition wise, I go right back to calorie counting to get myself back on track. But generally speaking, I just eat healthy.
Okay.
And it does make me feel better. I like to cook. I'm a pretty good cook. And so when I can sit down and make myself like a good meal, I feel really good. I mean, this past week has been getting back into the gym and I'm feeling like shit in the gym because my body is still recovering.
Yeah.
And I made like an absolutely fantastic steak dinner the other night. And I was talking about it for 2 days. I'm 3 days now. I'm still talking about it because it was so good. And the steak just came out perfect. Like I don't think I've ever cooked a steak that perfect before. And I can't get over it. I mean, but the fact like I did something like that, so simple, but it was good for me.
Yeah.
And I felt good doing it. And I knew that if Gordon Ramsay were sitting in my kitchen and he had a bite of that steak, he'd be pretty impressed. And by the way, it was meat that I pulled out of my freezer. So I'm even more proud of that.
There you go.
Yeah. So I do things like that. I do some daily things.
It looked like you read. Assuming you know how to read.
I do know how to read. I don't get a lot of reading done. I probably watch too much TV, but I do feel a lot better about myself when I get things done. So things like with my poetry page, which I'm trying to expand. When I sit down and write something that I've been planning on writing, like sometimes I don't always plan the poems because those are things that I don't know, it's part of my writer's ethos, I guess, that I allow to just happen. Because when those feelings come out, that's when they need to come out, and that's when I write about it.
Should we?
But things like essays or like longer, like non-poetry pieces, those I'll plan out and write. Doing things like a live poetry reading, which was supposed to be tonight, but we're doing this instead. So this still makes me feel accomplished. It makes me feel like I've done something. Also, today was Deadlift Day, so I already did something. But yeah, I mean, something like if I sat down and read a book, or decorated a room, tended to my cactus plants.
How
Like
about what we talked about for next month?
the ruck and right.
Yeah, talk about it. I mean, this video might drop halfway through it,
That's
but
cool.
it's another great joint hobby.
Yeah.
So go
Um,
ahead and take the reins and educate the viewer of this on what we're probably suffering on right now.
Cool. Well, my goal for it is to have a weekly ruck, 3 miles or more. Because if you're doing under 3 miles, like, I mean,
Say it.
I don't want to call somebody out, but
Say it.
like,
Just say it. Just
you
say
can
it.
walk 3 miles. Don't be a bitch.
There we go.
Better have a good excuse. Somebody better be pushing you in a wheelchair if you can't go for 3 miles.
Oh
And
man.
the person pushing you probably ought to be going for 3 miles. So do 3 miles or more. Put a load on your back. Put something. I don't want to put a weight requirement on there because some people really are dealing with some injuries, something that I don't want to exacerbate. So just be smart. Make it a challenge for yourself. Make it something that has to physically strain you. Because I do believe 100% that the physical strain that you go through helps you process things you are dealing with emotionally. It releases hormones in your body. It's allowing you to think in a different way. It's allowing you to think maybe more positively. It is cathartic for your body. And your body reacts to stress and mental things that you're dealing with. And when you can get your body to go through that catharsis, you're going to help your mind do it too. And so I want to do a topic associated with each week and each ruck. So it'll be a quick topic. It's not going to be like a paragraph writing prompt that you have to like stick to. But I want you to think about the topic while you're hiking. And then I want you to sit down at some point during that hike and write, either during the hike or after. I'll probably do it during, just because that's how I write. When a thought comes to me, I have to write it down, because if I don't, there are too many distractions in my daily life. I will forget. So, I mean, I'm talking like 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm like trying to lay down and go to sleep. If a thought comes to me, or I don't know, while I'm washing dishes, or like when I'm in the middle of a set at the gym, if I'm like, that sounds like a line I would want to use in a poem one day, I have to write it down or I will forget.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're that type of person, go ahead and do that. But, you know, do the ruck, think about the topic, sit down and write. Write a poem, write a paragraph, write whatever happens after you get done with that event. And I just want to see what comes up for people. And I want people to feel that catharsis. I want people to feel that kind of, I don't know, whatever shakes loose. I want people to feel that. And I think that that's good for people. I think it's good to explore new ways of expression and new ways of processing, and maybe process something for the first time. So that's the challenge.
I'm looking forward to it.
So I was gonna do it this month, but then I got COVID, and then it also snowed like a foot in my whole neighborhood. And I will be the first one to admit that I am a bitch with lowercase b about snow.
Yeah, but if you're gonna become a squad leader at some point, if you're gonna go 03, I mean, it's pretty likely.
I'm not saying that I won't eventually have to own up to it, and that might not be, that will be an obstacle that I may have to overcome one day.
Not this week.
But please, someone be shooting at me before I have to overcome it, because I need a little bit of motivation.
Okay. Do you have any?
Say it.
I'm just thinking. Do you have any
Save
additional?
Are you gonna say save grounds?
No, I wasn't.
I really thought you were working on it. I was like,
that was not in my head at all. No. Yeah. Do you have any saved rounds for anyone Any tips or tricks, anything for a female vet or dude or a xenomorph and predator? Any of them?
For the female vets, I would definitely say be friends. Be friends with other women. Give other women a pass every now and then. We're already doing something wrong because we're women. Don't do another thing wrong by excluding somebody because you want to be chosen. The guy's not going to pick you. Don't exclude somebody else because maybe she is doing the things. Maybe the rumors are true. Maybe she is sleeping with half the dudes in the barracks. Who cares? I certainly don't give a fuck. But you don't know what that woman is going through. You don't know what she's maybe dealing with that's causing her to act in a certain way. Maybe she's acting a little immature for a reason, and she needs a mentor rather than someone to judge her. And I think women are the worst when it comes to judging each other because we feel like we have to in order to fit in. And I was that person. And there was a lot of things that made me change the way that I looked about other women in the Marine Corps, just in the military in general. And I'll be the first one to hate somebody who gives the rest of the women a bad name. But I know that she's also dealing with something. And I know that I still have things to work on when it comes to being friendlier. But that's what I would say. My biggest piece of advice to other women in the military is to be friends. Be friends, be patient with other women. You're not going to like everybody. That's true for everyone. But you don't have to go out of your way to be mean or be rude or exclude her because you want to be the cool girl.
And then
And for people in general, be patient with yourself.
and then what about the transitional period? Patience, planning.
I don't know if I would even say planning because I planned a lot of things, but they were all the wrong things and none of them fit. Listen to yourself. Listen when the alarm bells are going off. Listen when that voice tells you something needs to change, because it does. You might not know what that thing is, but something has to change. I would say listen to yourself and take a breath, take a minute and pause. Most of us are not going through life or death situations every day. You know, it'll be okay. It would have been okay for me to stay in California for another month and figure out what I wanted to do before we moved to Texas. It would have been okay to say, I don't know if I want to go to school right now. It would have been okay if I said I need to take a pause with the semester. It would have been okay if I had said, it would have been okay for me to have said, maybe now's not the right time for me to get married, because that was some challenges.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been okay for me to pause and buck the pressure.
Yeah.
I read Atlas Shrugged when I was, I think, like a senior in high school. Or no, I was in college. I was in college by the time I read Atlas Shrugged. And I fell in love with Ayn Rand for a little while, you know, as a lot of young college students do.
Yeah.
But then I reread it and I finished it when I was in the Marine Corps, and it had a different tone for me then. But I really, there's a lot of good things out of those books, but the one quote that I really loved out of there is when, and you know, honestly, I can't even remember who's talking to who in the book, but somebody says, you know, what would you tell Atlas with the weight of the world on his shoulders? What would you tell him to do? And the other person says to shrug. And that's the whole point of the book, right? Is Atlas shrugged, took the pressure of the world off. And I would say, like, when you're feeling that kind of pressure, you might just need to stand up and shrug. You might just need to pause for a minute and figure out where the pressure's coming from. Because if you just start running in whatever direction you think you need to go in, you will probably go in the wrong one. Scared people do stupid things.
Yeah.
So pause, be patient, take a minute to figure out what you really need to do. When you're feeling that enormous amount of pressure, it's okay to take a break. Yeah.
And with that being said, thank you for taking the time to share, Dex. I know you're not allowed to share everything due to the CIA and the fracking of Sergeant Major Squad Leader. So for the few things that you did share, thank you
You're
from
so
me
tasty.
and whoever's watching this. Hey, I gotta throw some humor. I wanted to say for the resident salt lamp liquor, but that just seemed a little too far.
That's all
But
right. I'll lick anybody's salt lamp at least once.
my
I'll
God,
let you know. Does a scam? Probably not. It's probably salt. You could lick your own salt lamps if you wanted, unless you're
which
scared.
I carefully did.
Yeah.
So
Lamp.
hey,
That's the best way.
thank you, Dex, for your time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end the recording.
Okay. It says it's still recording on my end.
I know. My thing's acting weird. There we go.